Is it your position that the Constitution provides for some heretofore invisible right to an abortion, regardless of what you think about the issue?
It is my opinion that we have a right to privacy, and abortion is a medical procedure, and the right to privacy does extend to the discussions between a patient and a medical provider.
Okay, but I could have a right to privacy with my mafia capo, and we could decide to whack my political enemy. And I guess those conversations would be private. I don't think there is some generalized right to privacy in the Constitution. But even if they were, that would have no bearing on the life of the person that we're going to kill, right?
Well, the discussion between you and your mafia friend is very different from a discussion between a patient and a medical provider. We have laws that protect patient privacy for this exact reason.
But I suppose you're right. The distinction is that right now it's illegal for me to talk to my mafia boss and call out a hit on someone I don't like. And it is legal right now, at least according to the civil law, for a woman to talk to a doctor and kill her child. But that very likely will not remain legal if Roe versus Wade is overturned in 13, 14 states. Instantly, that will become illegal. So I guess I'm just talking about the matter itself, beyond questions of the civil law, which might be changing in real time right now. What's the difference? If you're saying it's all about a right to privacy, I'm saying, no, it's about the baby that's being killed. So do you have an answer for that, or are we just denying the humanity of the baby?
No, absolutely. So when you put up a scenario of trying to put out a hit with the mafia, you are talking about murdering a born, living, conscious, sentient, autonomous person. When we talk about abortion, we are talking about ending a non-autonomous life. You do not have the right to bodily autonomy if you are not autonomous. And if you are a fetus prior to the limit of viability, you do not have autonomy. Therefore, you do not have the right to bodily autonomy.
This is a great point.
You reside inside of the body of an autonomous person, and the right to bodily autonomy allows you to refuse to use your body to support the life of another person.
So this is a precise and important point you've made. You've acknowledged that abortion ends a life, but you've said, those were your exact words, you just said that the life is not autonomous. Would you say that a 2-day-old post-birth baby is autonomous?
It has bodily autonomy, and its body system is able to function autonomously. Yes.
The baby can feed itself?
You are trying to get to the point where they require external resources, but any person can provide that infant external resources. The utilization of someone's internal organs is very different from providing external resources. You cannot force someone to be a parent and provide external resources. You can give up that child at any point that you stop consenting to your parental responsibilities and your parental rights.
Okay, that's fine. So we've acknowledged now that the baby is living in the womb or outside the womb. It's a living being, and that the baby is not really autonomous. I mean, maybe it's not attached by an umbilical cord, but it certainly doesn't have autonomy when it's 2 days old. It needs to eat. It needs everything taken care of for it. What you're saying is, though, once the umbilical cord has been severed, the baby can be taken care of by someone else. So then my question is, why would we not merely encourage adoption? If the mother feels she can't take care of the baby, why not just give up the baby for adoption rather than killing the baby in the womb?
Because pregnancy in itself is a very serious medical condition that has physical, mental, emotional, and financial burdens for the pregnant person.
Yep.
And to force a person to endure that experience against their will is simply immoral, and it's belittling the experience that pregnancy is.
Well, so when you say against their will, what you're referring to cases of rape, basically. Right?
No,
because when you engage in sex, you are engaging in an act of the will, the consequence of which is, historically speaking, always pregnancy.
Correct. But when you consent to sex, you're not consenting to pregnancy. You are consenting to the possibility of pregnancy. But you can think of it like this. You understand the difference between consensual sex and sexual assault. You should then understand the difference between wanted pregnancy and unwanted pregnancy. Technically, physically, they are the same thing. But when your body is being used against your will and without your consent, those are very different experiences for the person.
But Bronte, you've just acknowledged that when you consent to sex, you are consenting to the possibility of pregnancy. So there you have it. There you are. You have consented to that. Now, you might not want to become pregnant. You might want to use all sorts of contraceptives and things like that. But surely, I mean, you've just said it yourself. You are consenting to that possibility. And so now you're telling me that if one wants to then withdraw one's consent because one doesn't want to be uncomfortable for some matter of months, you're saying that the better alternative is to just kill the baby whom you have acknowledged is alive?
First of all, calling pregnancy simply discomfort is belittling the experience. But you can also think
it's
like
beautiful
this.
and miraculous too, but it's also uncomfortable.
Says the white man who will never experience it.
But
you can think of it. No, so
I thought that can men become pregnant or no?
If you have a uterus.
A man with a uterus
can. Uterus, Michael?
So
because if you don't have a uterus, then you're not the men with a.
Well, look, I'm not a biologist, so I'm not sure if I'll become pregnant. I do have a little emoji that tells me that these days men can become pregnant. Regardless of that, if you're talking about non-consensual sex, what percentage of pregnancies arise from rape, incest, or involve a threat to the life of the mother?
Well, it's hard to say because about 3/4 of sexual assault go unreported. So any statistic that I would give to you is going to be inherently inaccurate.
I'll give you a statistic from the most left-wing source I can give, the Guttmacher Institute. It's the think tank for Planned Parenthood. Less than 1% of abortions take place because of rape, incest, or pose a threat to the life of the mother. So we're talking about an extraordinarily small number.
According to the ones that have been reported. According to the ones that have been reported.
Don't you think if there were a scarier statistic that the most pro-abortion organization in the country might use those statistics?
But these statistics are very difficult to collect because, again, sexual assault is a difficult issue and people don't often report them because you see how our political system doesn't often support victims of sexual assault. And so our system doesn't support people reporting sexual assault. Therefore, it is underreported.
So this seems difficult for me, Bronte. Well, one, it seems that in the years after the Me Too movement, there was quite a great political impulse to report sexual assault and all sorts of sexual issues. But furthermore, you're telling me that we need to rely on these statistics, trust the science, trust the public health organizations when it's convenient for your argument and convenient for abortion. But we shouldn't trust the statistics when it's inconvenient for your argument and supports the pro-life argument.
That is incorrect. You simply don't understand how these statistics work and how they are collected. When you understand and when you analyze statistics, you have to understand the bias and the flaws that they have. And what you are specifically citing statistics that have inherent flaws. That doesn't mean that all of the statistics that we cite are inherently flawed. You have to understand the issue at hand and how those statistics are collected. Okay,
fair enough. So you're saying you don't believe these statistics that are inconvenient, but you say you have perfectly good reason not to believe the statistics. I suppose the question, though, is really beyond the statistics, isn't it? If you are acknowledging, Bronte, that the baby is alive, if you are acknowledging that the baby could be given up for adoption, if you are acknowledging that instances of rape are, I think we can acknowledge they're quite rare, at least when we're talking about, even if you dispute some of the statistics, they're the exception, not the rule. If you are acknowledging all sorts of, if you are acknowledging the relatively low maternal mortality rate, if you are acknowledging the advancements in science, if you are acknowledging that very, very few women die every year from illegal abortions and all sorts of the other scare statistics that come out, if you're acknowledging all of those numbers, even beyond that, Don't we still have the fact of the baby? Don't we still have the non-utilitarian, non-statistical, simple fact that you're talking about a living human being?
No. So first off, you said that we have a low mortality rate, which actually we have one of the highest maternal mortality rates amongst all of the developed countries.
But it's still quite low. What is the maternal mortality rate according to the CDC?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I simply know that
20 out of 100,000, and that includes communities that do not have very good public health outcomes because of various behaviors and pathologies in the community. So it's relatively quite low. How many women died from illegal abortion the year before Roe versus Wade?
I'm not sure, but that's besides the point.
39 women.